Welcome to the Courage Over Clarity podcast, where we focus not on perfection, but on choosing Christ daily and moving in faith. Hello, and welcome to the Courage Over Clarity podcast. I am your host, Deja, and I am beyond excited that you decided to join me today. So today I will be talking about a topic that is very relevant to my life right now. And I think it might be relevant to the lives of many other people as well. So I wanted to bring it up and hopefully it provokes some conversation within marriages, within families, within friendships, just everywhere. And I want for us to really kick this episode off by asking ourselves, who are we living for? When I ask that question, I'm more so referring to who are you on a day-to-day basis allowing to influence your decisions? Are your decisions solely fueled by desire? Are they fueled by what makes the most career or business sense? Are you influenced by your family? Are you influenced by social media? What are you allowing to lead you and what is your driving force? And I know that might seem like a very broad question right now, but I promise it'll make more sense as we move forward. I think that in today's society, a lot of the times we want to justify why we've done something or why someone deserved a certain type of treatment because they did this or because they did that. And because of that, I now feel justified in treating them like this because what they did to me wasn't right. And I know we all know that saying, two wrongs don't make a right, but that doesn't mean that we live in a way that exemplifies that. I think it's so important for us, especially as Christians, to embody forgiveness. And when I talk about forgiveness, I really want you to sit with yourself and think about the people that have wronged you and how you dealt with those situations. And I want you to simply ask yourself, would Jesus do the same? And I know you're not Jesus. I'm not Jesus. We're all on the same page with that. But we are called to live a life in a way that mirrors the life of Jesus, as well as we are called to live in a way that is glorifying to God. And so I really want for you to ask yourself, do you do that? Do I do that when someone has wronged me, when I feel like I've been disrespected, when all the odds are stacked against me? Am I still living for him? Capital H-I-M. Am I still living for him? Or am I allowing the personalities and the people around me to dictate the person that I am? I think that in so many spaces and places, we have made it normal to have to switch and be this kind of person with this group of people and this kind of person with this group of people. And I think that for me at this age, I'm just really not interested in doing that anymore. I want to be known for the same thing in every space, in every place, in every group. That's just kind of where I am right now. There are so many things that I could care less if people think, feel, believe, or know about me. But I can tell you that one thing, without a doubt, comes to mind every single time. And before I'm known as a wife, as a mom, as a daughter, as a niece, a sister, before I'm even known as a career woman, I want to be known as a woman of God. When people think of me, I want that to be what they think of. And I think that that's important to me because I want for people to take a look at my life and the mistakes that I've made and the decisions that I've made and be able to say, wow, like this woman is still choosing Christ every single day. Like it's not just something she's talking about, but it's something that she's living. And I want for them to feel like they can do that too. No mistake is too large. No past is too crazy for you to be able to choose God today, right now, if that's what you decide to do. And I want to be an example of that. And I don't want that to be confused with me looking to please people, because that's not it at all. I'm not looking to be anyone's favorite anything, but I am looking to exemplify a life that is pleasing to God. I want for people to look at me and how I interact and how I act around people and say to themselves like, okay, she has made a complete 180. Because if I'm being honest with myself, I haven't always been where I am now. And I'm so grateful that God has brought me through and brought me to this new place in my life, because he could have left me right where I was. He really could have left me right where I was. And I want for people to be able to say like that they respect how I deal with situations, even when I may be justified in their eyes to do something completely different. But even with that being said, I still cannot allow the thoughts and feelings of other people to dictate the person that I'm going to be. I can't allow that to dictate the kind of woman that I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And that takes us right back to the point of what we talked about previously, and that was the idea of performing. In a previous episode, we talked about performing for God, or feeling like we need to perform for God, but that not really being necessary because he already knows our hearts. He already knows who we are. He's known us since we were in the womb, before we were in the womb. We don't need to perform for him. We don't need to do these great acts of kindness and sweetness and this, that, and the third as a way to earn God's love. If you're going to do those things, do them because you're looking to share the love of God, not to earn the love of God. Those are very different things. We already have his love. We already have everything that we need with him living on the inside of us, especially if we have accepted him as our Lord and Savior. If we received him, there's nothing that you need to perform for. He will do and give us any and everything that we need as his children in order to succeed. We don't need to perform for him to get those things. And there's nothing that we can do to earn our salvation. That's something that's given to us freely. So we talked about all that before. So now I'm talking about performing for people. It is so often that I myself and others that I know have gotten caught up in performing for people and being what people have told us that we are, and trying to live up to a standard that someone else has told us is the right standard for us, or that we should be living up to. And if we allow ourselves to get lost in that kind of expectation, we'll never be able to lead a life that's glorifying to God, because we're too caught up and too worried about living the life that people think looks beautiful and acceptable. If that is your main focus, you need to switch your focus. And you really need to ask yourself, like, seriously, what would Jesus do? And I know that seems so simplistic, and I don't even know the words for it, but I'm telling you, on a day-to-day basis, if you are starting to think of your interactions with people and saying to yourself, what would Jesus do? It just might change the way that you talk to people, the way that you act towards people, the way that you feel about yourself. Because at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, is this what Jesus has told me about me? You can say to yourself, oh, I've gained so much weight. I don't look good. This doesn't look good on me. Nothing looks good on me. And falling into those rabbit holes, because as a mom and as a woman in general, I've been there, done that. And I have to ask myself in those moments, is this what God has said about me? Or did he tell me that I was fearfully and wonderfully made? Which one is it? And now I have to move as if I know that to be true. Even if in the moment I don't really want to believe or connect or identify with those statements, I have to roll with it because that's what God told me. And that's what God has said about me. And that is who I am. Who am I to question God? I'm not questioning what God has said about me. I don't know about you, but that's not the place I want to be in. There are a lot of questions that we can ask God, but questioning him about who we are and his creation, that's not one I'm trying to ask. So I will not tell myself that the things that God has said about me are not true. If that's what he said about me, then that's what it is. And so when we talk about asking ourselves the same thing in regards to our interactions with people and just who you are as an individual, I think it's super important to ask yourself, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus say in this moment? What would I want for someone to say to me if the shoe was on the other foot? It's just so important that we start asking ourselves these questions, because if you don't, a lot of times the things that come out of your mouth are the furthest from the ideas and the desires of God for our lives. We cannot produce good fruit if what we're rooted in isn't good. And I hope that makes sense to you guys. There have been a multitude of situations in which I could have made a better choice. I could have said something different. I could have done something different. And I chose not to because I was serving myself. I was serving my own flesh. I was prioritizing me, my feelings and my emotions over what I know to be true and what God has told me that he expects of me. And I want to save other people from making those same decisions that I made. But I also understand that we all have our own journey. And it may take you saying something that you have no business saying or doing for God to convict you and call you out on that thing for you to really see what I'm referring to. But I, for one, know that the things that I've done and said and the mistakes that I've made, They have all shaped me into the woman that I am today. So I can't exclude or wish those things away without removing some of the lessons that God has taught me through those situations. So it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to slip up or to do or say the wrong thing. But what we don't want to do is allow that to become our habit. Don't let that become who you are or what you're known for. Don't let that be the thing that people are, looking at you and expecting from you. We all have that one friend that is known for saying something that they don't have any business saying or doing. And we all know someone that does like outlandish things. And you think to yourself, did they even think that through? Like, why would they do that? We have all either been that friend or we know that friend. So it's important for us to really prioritize thinking in a way that is Christ-minded, meaning thinking of things that are above and not beneath. So when I mention that, I'm saying we need to think about things that are heavenly, that are edifying, that are glorifying to God, and not just the things that serve this world. I'm in no way, shape, or form perfect, but I think that one thing that I can say about myself is that I have learned so much over the last few years. I have really just felt like God has really been shifting and changing me in ways that I could have never done myself. I could have never made these changes on my own, mostly because I think that without him, I wouldn't even have the desire to. If it weren't for God and his spirit living inside of me, I don't know if I would even want to do the things that I want to do now. I don't even know if those things would even be as important to me, because having him present in my life, having him on the throne of my heart, means that he's receiving the glory from the things that I'm doing. Before that, I was receiving the glory for the things that I was doing. So if my feelings were hurt, if I felt disrespected, if I felt justified in acting a fool or saying something inappropriate to someone, like cursing them out or whatever, if I felt justified in doing those things, it was because I was trying to serve my flesh. Like I mentioned before, I was doing what I thought was best, what would make me feel better, and not what would be glorifying to God. One thing I will say is that I have not always been so thoughtful with my words, and I have been known in the past in various spaces to just say whatever's on my mind. And even if that really didn't mean me like saying anything vulgar, but just saying whatever came to me, like not really thinking about what the other person may feel about this thing or what they even meant prior to that moment, what they were trying to convey, but instead just going for the jugular and, feeling like whatever I say, whatever I do after this moment is your fault because you shouldn't have done X, Y, Z. But now my response is, you be blessed. You be blessed. I'm not looking to right your wrongs, to correct you, to be your boss, to be your teacher. I'm not looking to do any of those things. If you want to act a fool, I'm going to allow you to do it. But what I'm not going to do is match your energy. I used to think that people get what they give. So if you act a certain way towards me, or I feel like you're doing or being a certain type of way, I have every reason to do and be the same way towards you. But again, it's all about perception. You may just be like this all the time, so you don't even see anything wrong with it. But me being who I am, it's out of my character to be and act a certain way. So if I'm deciding to serve my flesh, then I can't do what's best in that situation. I can't make the decision to do what glorifies God, because 9 times out of 10, what my flesh wants and what God wants for me are not the same. They're nowhere near one another. It is rare and it is few and far between that these decisions align. And so we have to remove ourselves from the equation and just really think outside of the box, I guess you can say. We have to try our best to empathize with people. Why would they say something like that? Why would they do that? They must be hurting. They must be struggling. Maybe they need some prayer. Maybe they're struggling through something, and hear me out. Maybe even as the Christian in this equation, go the extra mile, take the extra step and say, this doesn't seem like you. Are you okay? Do you need me to pray for you? Is there something that you need? Is there something going on? Is there a reason why you're lashing out like this? How can I help you? And I know in certain situations that may seem like, oh no, I'm not doing that. But imagine what glory it would bring to God for you to do that. For you to, instead of choosing yourself, instead of doing what you want to do something that you know glorifies his name. And not only that, but in doing this, you are displaying the kindness and the love of God. And that is so important. You're showing that to someone who may not know God. And at the end of the day, one of our biggest missions on earth is to spread the gospel. And it's very difficult to spread the gospel when you look just like the world. You talk, everything just like the world does. God has called us to be set apart. And you can't be set apart if you're blending in. And that isn't to say that you can't associate or be around certain people, but it is to say that whatever you're doing and wherever you are, whatever you have going on, should be glorifying to God, and God should be receiving the glory for everything that you do, because he's your priority. I don't know about you, but I'm living for Christ. And so every day I have to wake up and make that decision. I'm living for Christ, and that means that I have to die to myself. And I know that that's something that's very difficult for some people to understand because they don't get the context. But basically, dying to self is simply, I am not allowing my flesh to lead and dictate my life, but instead I'm allowing God to be the author and the finisher of my faith, my life, my everything. That's like the simplest terms that I can really put it into. And in believing that, it's so much easier to make those difficult decisions. I'm not saying it's always going to be easy and you're always going to feel like doing it, but majority of the time you're going to be able to say, okay, I know what this person expects from me. I know what kind of reaction they want to get out of me, but I refuse to give that to them. Not because I want them to feel silly, but because if I give them that reaction, what does that say about me to God? Does that show that I don't trust him to fight my battles, that I don't trust him to do what he said he would do on my behalf? As we know, Psalms 23 verse 4 says, even when I walk through the darkest of valleys, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect me and comfort me. This is the part that I really want to reference. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. When we take matters into our own hands, it's like us saying that we don't trust God to do exactly what he said that he would do. And for me, I trust in God. So whatever I was about to do or wanted to dish out to you, it is nothing compared to what he has for you. And I don't want it to make it seem like I am like, oh, I want people to be punished for what they did to me, because that's not the case either. I don't need to go out of my way to prove my point to you or show you that you were wrong or that you shouldn't treat people like that, because God is going to do that for me. Not because you deserve to be punished or anything like that, but because he wants you just like he wanted me. He had to pull me out of my sin just like he'll have to pull anyone else out of theirs. So he will reveal to you your wrongdoing when the time is right. It's not my job to do that. It's not my job to be the wrong and right police. It's just not. So I don't need to call you out. That's not my place. I have too many things going on in my own life, and I have too many things that I need to work on to be calling you out on your wrong. So I'm not going to prioritize that. I'm going to prioritize showing you the love of God through my actions, through my words. And I want to continue to pray for you. I'm going to continue to pray for you even in your wrongdoing, even if you hurt my feelings, even if you left me hanging, whatever it is. I'm going to continue to pray for you because God is able to do a work in you just like he did a work in me. All I got to do is send up that prayer and be faithful. All I got to do is do what he has called me to do. And there are so many unbelievers in the world that look at Christians and they're like, y'all do the same thing we do. You're just like me. Why do I need to believe and do all the extra stuff that you're doing if me and you do the same stuff? And that's why I say we have to be set apart. We have to do the things that God has called us to do, even when they're difficult, even when they don't satisfy the need that we have to be right, to feel justified, or what have you. We have to choose him. So I ask you again, who are you living for? Are you living for yourself? Are you living for him? Capital H-I-M. Because that matters. And when you start living for him, it will change everything. I mean, the most minute interactions, the smallest things you begin to realize, like, oh my goodness, I really could have acted a fool. Old me probably would have, but I don't need to do that. I don't need to get them together. And you conserve so much energy because you're not giving people 110% of yourself trying to read them for filth. It's just not necessary. It's just not necessary. And it doesn't benefit you in the way that you think it does. But instead, it feeds something inside of you that thrives off of conflict. It thrives off of conflict. And you don't want to feed that part of you. We all have that part of us that wants to get up in somebody's face and to feel justified in what we're doing. Don't feed that part of you. Because when you feed it, I guarantee you it's going to get hungry again. And you're going to have to do it again and again and again and again. And not just that you have to, but you'll want to. You'll want to chase that feeling of, yeah, that's what I thought. That's what they get. They're not gonna do that to me. They're not gonna treat me like that. They're not gonna talk to me like that. You're gonna want to feed that part of you. And that's the part of you that does not need to be fed. The part of you that needs to be fed is the part of you that is looking and seeking Christ. That part of you is what we want to feed. We want you to prioritize that, to thrive off of that, to go every day living a life that is glorifying to Him. So I think the most important thing that we can do is begin to make these changes that seem small, that seem minute, that really have the capability to change our lives, to change the way that we look at people. My brother told me before the meaning of the word sonder, and don't quote me on this exact definition, but from what I remember, he was saying that sonder means that everyone that you meet, everyone that you come in contact with or see in passing, they are experiencing, their own definition of hardship, their own everything. Like you're not the only one, and to me, when he mentioned that to me, it just reminded me that everyone deserves kindness. Even the meanest person that you know deserves kindness, because 9 times out of 10, there's a reason why they are the way that they are. And it isn't your job necessarily to dig into why they treat people the way that they do, what made them become this way. That's not really what, you're called to do, but you're called to show them kindness, love, and respect regardless of those things. And that is something that my brother definitely reminded me of. And I think about that often. Everyone that you meet is the main character of their story, and they have things that are going on, things that are troubling them, things that bring them joy, things that bring them sadness that we know nothing about. So the least that we can do is be kind, because we don't know what they're experiencing on the other side. And I think we may have talked about this before, but you may be the only piece of Jesus that someone sees that day, or talks to that day, or encounters that day. Just you. So make it count. Make it worth it. Show people the love of Christ, even when you don't have to, even when you have every reason not to. Do it anyway. Because what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? WWJD. But seriously, like, asking ourselves, like, are we living a life that is glorifying to God? And if not, what can I do to change that? So I want for you to ask yourself that. What can I do to bring glory to God in my everyday life? What is a behavior or a thing that I might be saying or doing to my children, to my spouse, to my mom, to my siblings, to my friends? What is something that I may be doing that is fueling a part of me that pulls me away from God, that pulls me away from the character of God? And just start implementing small changes in order to get rid of that thing, in order to stop feeding that part of you. And I'm just praying that you begin to see changes in your life and in how you interact with people, because those things really matter. And those small changes will become big changes, and those big changes will become lifestyle shifts. So I encourage you to just take a look at your life and really start to analyze what these changes would look like for you and what they would do for your well-being. So, yeah, that was the message for today. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this message. I hope that, like I said before, that it resonated with you, that you were able to connect to pieces of it, if not all of it, and that it will inspire you to start to make changes and make shifts in your life that will benefit you as well as bring glory to God. So my prayer for you is that God will just continue to do a work in you, that He will just continue to move and shift things in your life for the better, and that you will continue to seek Him in all that you do, even in the smallest details. You'll continue to seek Him and use the things that He has taught you and revealed to you in order to be a light in the lives of others. I thank you again for taking the time to listen to the podcast, for sharing with your friends and your family, for using this as a way to provoke conversation in the lives of loved ones. I am still beyond excited for everything that God has been doing through the podcast and the messages that He has been revealing to me. And I pray that it just continues to be a blessing to you and that it will continue to glorify Him. This is all for God. This is, like I mentioned to you guys before, this is all about my obedience to Christ. And if it helps just one person, that's enough. If it resonates with just one person, that is enough for me. So, yeah, I'm so grateful to you guys. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Rate the podcast. Send it to someone that you think may benefit from hearing it. And I will see you guys next time for our Mother's Day episode, which I'm super excited for. I will be having a very special guest on the podcast, so I hope you will tune in then as well. Have an amazing week, and Jesus loves you, and so do I. Bye.